Alright guys, we are back. Let me pull this up real quick. I should have this before. There we go. Back in April, in my one video, I hinted that a new information was going to come out about another government agency that has failed East Palestine, and well, it has come out. You guys probably seen this on Facebook. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I hinted to it, so when it came out, I just wanted to touch on it a little bit. FEMA basically gave the middle finger to East Palestine. And people want to blame this on the Biden administration. It's not that administration. It's, it's the whole agency itself. It has really nothing to do to the administration. Like I said, I don't like to get political in my channels for the simple fact that there is trash on both sides. But if you look, they were saying, oh, when Trump comes in office, he's going to do this, he's going to do this. I just seen an article where they were lowering what the PFASs in water. No, they're hiring the limits of it because so much drinking water doesn't fit the requirement. And with the current technology, they can't remove down to that level, I guess, from what I read by the article. Like I said, I'm no expert, so it doesn't matter what administration comes into office. It's the agencies themselves. We haven't seen nothing new. The more these FOIA documents come out, the more we learn. Well, with FEMA, they were strictly told not to engage with the residents. They only engage with the select few, which I will not disclose that because that wasn't disclosed anywhere as have seen. But you have a good idea who they are. And they didn't want them to participate in the November 3rd community meeting. Imagine that, because they had to engage with residents. Let's see here. They acknowledged that the really toxic plume created by the burn, discussing future cancer clusters, and simultaneously avoiding direct communication with affected residents. So, they knew when they were here. Remember when they were supposed to go to door, I think it was, or something, and ask about your symptoms, and that never happened? Well, now we know why. They just wanted to cover it up, sweep it under the rug, and it all goes away. So, I just wanted to touch on that because I hinted to that. If more comes out, I will cover it, but, until then. But we are really here because we have the new creek stream assessments finally came out. The April of 2025. They finally released them. And I'm only doing this video for information for people that want it, that don't really get time to see it or stuff, because I'm to the point now. What's my meter peeking out for? I'm turn it down a little bit. Oh, that's a little too low. Okay, I'm to the point now that they ain't gonna clean that up. It's always gonna be there. Yeah, there was legacy contamination in that creek before the train derailment. I agree. I wish you guys would listen to my part series I'm putting out on what we were told 2 years ago, because I think that was that, and if there was a few town halls before what I like to call the muzzle was put on everybody. So there is a lot of stuff that is admitted in there that was known, and stuff that was supposed to be looked into, like house cleaning, they knew was substandard, and they were trying to look into getting it done the second time the right way, things like that. With being 2 years ago, I forgot all that, and as I listen to that, it just pisses me off more, because it just knows what they were doing, like when the tracks were being dug up, the vapors coming off there, and what exposure that was, residents were being exposed to. They knew all that. They knew all that from the get-go, but they still continued to do it. And, I implore you to listen to them. I kind of chopped it up, even though they're all great to listen to, like, all the way through. I kind of just chopped out the, major important facts I've seen. I thought that was, important, being a almost 2.5 years later, of what they knew back then, what they said they were going to do, and what they did, which was basically nothing. So, with the new creek assessment surveys come out, we know Sulphur Run is a mess. I still want to do the video on how they check for sheen. I think you guys will get... Man, why is my meter peeking out so bad? I think you guys would get a enjoyment on how they check for sheen, compared to how we check for sheen. So, being this is their numbers, I'm sure I could go out there in that same section and get 10 times what they got. But we'll just go with what they released. We will start with the top half of sulfur. I like they didn't include anything that has anything that, like, from where sulfur crosses under their tracks to the derailment site, like State Line Lake and stuff. None of that was included. I would like to have, seen some of that, being they found contamination up in the wetlands up there. But as you can see from the chart, okay, we're just going with the first segment. As you can see from the chart, the sheen has actually went up. The sheen scores. We had 6 heavy sheen in 2023. In June, there was no heavy sheen in that small section. Now in April, we got 1 heavy sheen, 5 medium sheens, which we only had 1 medium sheen in 2024. Which they really didn't do much in 2024 because there was an excuse: the water was too low, the water was too high, it's not a good time to do it. Being they're doing this creek assessment in the wintertime, when it seems to be a little harder to find this stuff than in the summertime when the water warms up. I look for these numbers, to go up. But the show, the numbers have went up, even in the small section. Okay, now we go to the next. I wish they would have broke this down into smaller sections. It would have helped me a lot. But we do big sections. We go to the next section. There, basically the section that runs through town. Okay, in 2023. We had 10 heavy sheen. Okay, 2024 we had none. Now in 2025 we have 6 heavy sheens. Okay, so where are these sheens coming from? I personally have a feeling of, I know where they're coming from. They're coming from the sides of the creek, and basically washing back into the creek the stuff that has soaked into the side. But they don't think I'm guessing from the way they talk is they don't think the ecology of the stream, like the structure of the stream, changes like from month to month, from year to year. There's holes down there that used to be holes that are all filled in now just by the sheer flooding, of moving material down and stuff. So this stuff gets buried. And the way they check for sheen, they seem to think that it just always sits on top, and it never basically gets buried by something else on top of it. So, I don't know what to say. I'm gonna do this. This was sent with this sheen assessment. Okay, this was sent with the email with this sheen assessment by an EPA official. Okay. Sulphur Run has its usual challenges where I'm seeing heavier sheen in this areas where water slows down due to obstructions, which makes sense. More to come, but wanted to make you aware of this part of this data is available. We're looking to short-term and longer-term options for dealing with both urban runoff and point source non-derailment properties that are likely main contributors to this additional buildup. So they're basically blaming on runoff is what's causing this sheen to go higher. I don't 100% agree with that, but hey, I'm not a government agency, so we get down into Leslie. Leslie has had its patches of bad spots, basically until you get to the treatment plant. From the treatment plant down, you can find it, but it's a little harder to find just because of the way the water is usually flowing faster. There's more rock sections. It just makes it harder to find this stuff. But as you've seen, even in sheen scores, we have no heavy sheens in 2025, but we have one medium sheen, which we had none in 2024. So, as we go down farther down Leslie, most of it's light sheen. The light sheen scores have went up too. Oh, we got 1 and 1 there, so that's exactly the same. But it's harder to find in Leslie just for the simple fact of the way the water flows down there. And plus, it's, farther downstream. So we just have one light sheen there, and then we get down to the Negley area, and we go from 1 in 2024 to 3 in 2025, which is washed down from sulfur, more than likely. These weren't. North Fork Little Beaver wasn't assessed because they didn't find anything. Bull Creek wasn't assessed, I guess, because they didn't find anything in 2023. We look at, let me see here. They did these little runoffs. This one had 5, has 5 now, had 2, and had 3. So that one went up a little bit. This one was not assessed. The upper half of Leslie Run wasn't assessed, and this little stream coming off down by the sewer treatment plant wasn't assessed either. So, the sheen numbers are going up, and they want to contribute it to maybe runoff or something. But, I personally can't say what it is, but, we all have a good idea what it came. What happened to my camera? It just died. Tonight is just not my day. Oh, I'm back. Yay! Okay. I don't know what happened to the camera. I just wanted to put this out there. For some fact, no matter how many times, I go out and dig this stuff up and show this stuff and stuff, nothing's going to be done with it. It's going to be excuse after excuse after excuse of what it could be, what it might be, which, there was legacy. There always will be a legacy no matter where you go. But it wasn't like this. I've talked to people that has lived in that area. They call sulfur not a very ecological stream, or there's no ecology in it or something. There's places in sulfur I see more fish than I do in Leslie. So there is stuff living in there. But I guess it's not. Maybe it's not diverse enough for their standards. I don't know how they go about doing that, but I just want to give you guys a quick rundown on the new stream assessment. The numbers have went up. They're blaming it on non-derailment, runoff. Basically, is it? Isn't it? I don't think it is. I think it's just this stuff that's has basically sunk deeper into the sediment than they're going. And with the high rains, the floods, you'd be amazed how high that creek gets when we get a lot of rain. It's washing all that stuff out of the side of the creek beds. I'm going to use the right words here because I call them banks because you stand, they're on the sides, but they call them creek beds. So I think it's washing all the stuff out of the creek beds, or is it because basically they restored flow to sulfur without really monitoring it. Is it coming from the derailment? Where's all that contamination that's under Saran Fab? If you've seen, I've seen, pictures and videos, and, people's been down there testing. And the water coming out from the Saran Fab looked, like what's behind me. That's exactly what the water looked like. So where's all that contamination at? How did they get all that contamination out of the ground underneath Saran Fab? And Strohackers and, everything down that side. And on the other side of the tracks, too. Did we use a big industrial vacuum that we put in the ground and it just magically sucked everything up? Because there's still pockets of stuff under them buildings, let alone, the parking lots and whatever else they, really didn't get to. There's pockets of this stuff. So, this stuff is migrating from somewhere. Could have been because they were digging up on the wetlands, digging up that spot that I was told that the wetlands could never be contaminated because it was upstream, and sure enough, they found stuff there. Could have been coming from that. I should do a video on their plan of how they're routing the water. They basically they made containment ponds, basically. I think is to check the water before it's released. But if we get heavy rain or them containment ponds not being monitored and the water's just being pumped out and sent downstream, we've seen the errors and the way, the contractors have handled stuff. I've personally seen the way they have handled stuff. You guys remember My Chemical Stream, where they purposely were sediment cleaning and they let this stuff run on the sulfur run for, they want to say only an hour. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. We'll say an hour and a half. I thought, if I look at my times on my video and from when they say they got down there and put a stop to it, it was more closer to 3 hours. They let this stuff run downstream. And I even, I could see the EPA coordinator, director, the overseer of whoever was supposed to be overseeing this, standing up on the bank way, away from basically what they were doing. And I even, brought attention to this guy. Aren't you guys supposed to be containing, if I could speak, containing this? And the answer I got, we're trying. That's the answer I got. We're trying. As he sees me, and he sees for himself this stuff just flowing down the stream, and they continue to just let this go for hours before finally somebody from the EPA, somebody sent the EPA my video, and that's what put the stop to this. Now, if I wouldn't have released that video, then, pretty much as soon as I got home, that would have still been happening. So how many other screw-ups or, I don't know how many screw-ups or how many mismanagement of stuff that they do. I've personally witnessed tons myself. They got to the point that when I go down now, they stop working just for the simple fact that they didn't want to get recorded working because of maybe OSHA standards, because they weren't wearing OSHA approved stuff while they were doing this. But also to the point that I was capturing stuff. I do believe that company did get a fine for the Clean Water Act for letting that stuff flow downstream for however long they did. So I'm sure they weren't very happy. But I do believe they did get a fine for that. But that just goes to show you, not. Now, I don't want to say all these people that worked on this derailment don't care, because I have met a lot of workers. I have talked to a lot of workers that really care about their job and, basically, want to do the best they can because they realize, people live here. People's got to continue to live here, and they would do the same thing if this was their hometown. But then you got people that just don't give a crap, and they just want to get the job done because maybe either the job sucks. We all got them people at work that just do the bare minimum, and they still get paid the same amount as the people that, basically do twice the work. We all got them people, at a job. And that's what you get here. You get people that don't care, that cut corners. I've seen them cut corners. I've seen them just quit. as soon as I show up, whatever they're in the middle of, they don't care. They will just quit. I don't know. It's just the more FOIA documents that come out, and I noticed EPA has not updated their FOIA documents site for quite a long time now. Basically, their site in general really isn't updated that much. So I don't know. I got told they're in the process of updating that, but it still hasn't been updated. What other FOIA documents? Being that the Government Accountability Project had to sue the government to get the FEMA FOIA. It just goes to show you that that's also something they didn't want out there. So they wanted to basically tie it up a little longer in the court system, basically suing, even though they know they're going to lose. But it keeps the information out of the hands of people it could have been useful to. Let's say settlement wise. Why do you think they were so quick to get this settlement done? Because they wanted this settlement done before and all this info came out and all these studies came out, all this FOIA stuff came out. They wanted it done. They didn't want it done to help you get over, move on faster, nothing. No, they wanted it done before all this info came out, because as soon as this info started coming out, they would have been in for a lot more. So don't let them, tell you that they cared about you and they gave you this. No, they did this just to cover their butts. Before info was released. I don't think it should have been approved as quick as it was, without all the information. But that's another tangent I can go on with posts on Facebook and, people complaining about money and stuff. We just won't go there in this one. But I wanted to give you the sheen update. Sheens have risen again. As soon as the weather cooperates, which, we've been having a lot of rain. Heavy rain doesn't help me at all. It's very hard to find the stuff when the creek's flowing, 60 miles an hour. It basically pops up after it's way past you and going downstream. I'm only one person, so I can't be in two places at once. I was down there. It would have been in April, I think. I went down by the park. Stream was moving kind of fast. I did catch a couple pockets, but it was, by the time it popped up, with the water being cold also, by the time it popped up, it was downstream and it hit the rapids, and it was just, you lose it once it hits that. So as the weather warms up, as pointless as this is, I still want to get out there and show this is the way they left the community. They want to be out here by the middle part of June. They're really on the ball to be out of here by, the middle of June. You can tell they're really pressing to be out of here. So I just want to continue to go out and just show. This is how they left the community. They said it was fine. They left it like this. Just to put it out there. Is anything going to come of it? No. Me, I'm a small person. I basically don't mean anything to them. They can just shrug me off and say, okay, this is legacy. This is, runoff from the road. They could say it could be anything, and obviously that's going to go. But I like to go out there and show, basically what the media isn't showing. We don't even have no media contact really at all unless something big happens. But I like to be out there to show what the media isn't showing, and basically forgets the town until you got, Vance that comes in, then we have freaking a town full of people that really, government, media agencies that really didn't give a crap about us until somebody big comes in town, and then they leave, and then you don't hear nothing. There's nothing else said about us, the whole time. So there's your update. I'll work on more videos on them clips. Like I said, if you get time, please go through, because there is so much that is taken from them town halls before the proverbial muzzle was put on everybody of stuff they admitted to that they knew that they were supposed to be looking into, or there was going to be a new work plan for this, or they were going to address this in the future, and it was never addressed. I'll continue clipping them as the weather improves. Start looking for more creek videos. because, like I said, I just want to get out there and show this is the way they left the town. This is what they consider okay for people to live in. That's basically what I want to be out there doing. Um, Other than that, thank you guys, and I will catch you guys on the next video. I don't know when it will be. Next video like this, like I said, probably won't be till I get to the creek. Maybe I'll cover their. I got their work plan for the wetlands, even though that's kind of probably over with and done with. I have some stories to tell about that too, but of some background information, some insider information, let's call it, that I was given on that. Maybe I'll do a video on that, but other than that, it probably won't be till I be able to get back into the creeks, and we'll just go through. We'll show, just to keep this going, we'll show how they left the town. Other than that, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate all you guys. I appreciate all you guys, that was checking up on me when I took my little break. It just, a lot of you guys use this as a source because you don't have the time to go through this, or you don't want to go through and find this stuff. And I appreciate all you guys. Even the ones in town that hate me, I still appreciate you guys because you guys, watch my videos to hate me. So you still give me a view. So thank you. But to all the people, that heavily rely on me, and many times I was thanked and called a hero. I ain't no hero. I'm just a normal human being doing what I think a normal human being should have been doing for their fellow people. That's the way I look at it. I don't see myself as no hero. I've been called that. I've been thanked. I think it's just what mankind should be doing for each other. If we had more of this going on in the world, we wouldn't have all these problems we have now if we looked out for each other more. But unfortunately, you got bad eggs in every batch. So, alright guys, I will catch you next time. Guys, take care.